Folks, welcome to your weekend. This is So Bad It's Good. This is your pal Ryan. And yeah, I think it's Saturday, right? You might be listening to this on Saturday or Sunday or next week. I hope the weather is great whenever you're listening to this. Today we are doing a Southern Charm slash Summer House recap. And we'll go over both shows with a fine toothed comb and see what we can decipher from these incorrigible men from both casts and the women who love them. What did you guys think of this? The Southern Charm reunion, I don't know. I just think there were so many missed opportunities this season and this reunion. I mean, Miss Patricia comes out for a 5-minute segment. You take the lady all the way out of Charleston. She's a legend, and you give her 5 minutes to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Southern Charm. And I'm sorry, man. Whitney, you are a producer on this show. You get your butt out there on stage. Are you kidding me? Come on. We could do. Listen, this is my dream. If they were smart over there, they would be doing like a full reunion episode for each cast member and taking us through all 10 seasons. I mean, wouldn't a sit down with Whitney just from concept of the show, which he was one of the producers on until now, and give us never before seen like secret details from behind the scenes? Are you kidding me? And a whole episode on Craig from that skinny little Adderalled out kid to who he is now. I mean, come on. You've got so much content sitting there in one room. Use those opportunities. But listen, at this point, you are going on, you're going on the fact that we've known these characters for so long. So there is a comfortability for the audience that, I mean, this is an easy breezy watch. Now, Summer House, on the other hand, what I've been saying this entire season and for the last couple of years is this show glides on vibes. And I got to tell you, I like the vibes. I think Summer House is pound for pound a really enjoyable watch. I will talk to people, though, that really don't care for Summer House at all. And that always boggles my mind. But also, this episode of Summer House in particular really worked because most of it was set in the city, which is a real great tinkering of the initial theme of a party house on the weekends. We're taking it into the city. And I mean, that softball game was a lot of fun. I mean, you also had you had the creeping suspicion of Lexi, the Jesse Solomon, who just made her his girlfriend and finding out about the toe sucking. There was like this tension that the audience felt that, oh my God, Lexi's going to find out. And of course, Lindsay earning her paycheck. Lindsay dropping bomb after bomb. My God, did you hear that rumor this week? Or I've been hearing it for the last couple of weeks that potentially Lindsay would be considered for Real Housewives of New York season 3 on the reboot. And I have to tell you, I mean, like everybody's like, oh, how does Lindsay work on this show if she has a baby? I don't know. I'm not paid to figure that out, but that is an interesting possibility. Couldn't you see her on Real Housewives of New York? And then the baby thing is neither here nor there. I love that I'm talking about the baby thing like a character. That little accessory that she has. No, I mean, I will say I am excited about the fact of throwing somebody like Lindsay in Real Housewives of New York. I think that could be the retooling that show needs. I'm still just trying to go over in my mind, who would you keep on Real Housewives of New York? Would you keep Aaron? Would you keep Cy? Would you keep Jessel? Who would you let go? I mean, I still think Brynn, I don't know how far you can go with Brynn after the finale of Roni this past season. But who knows? But I think Lindsay would be an excellent addition. And then people could stop bitching if she's going to be on Summer House next season or not. Whether you like Lindsay or not, she brings it, man. Because there are even moments where I'm like, damn, Lindsay, God, that was cold. But then you're like, it's good TV. It's good. It's good. It's good, right? So I enjoyed Summer House. I mean, it wasn't the most dynamic hour of television I've ever seen, but I enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it more than I did the Southern Charm reunion. Anyways, how are you guys? Are you good? Man, what a week, huh? Right? Quite a week. If you are up for it, there were plenty of episodes I released this weekend. I also released 2 episodes over on the Patreon, patreon.com/so bad it's good. Hello, baddies. I said on Friday's episode, but I'll say it again. You got to watch the 3rd season of Love on the Spectrum. If you want a little goodness in your heart, if you want to tear up a little bit, If you want to laugh and go through the range of emotions with ethical reality television, look no further than Netflix's Love on the Spectrum. I flippin' loved it. And also this Sunday, we've got the finale of White Lotus. If you are not watching White Lotus, good on you. You must, enjoy getting outside. But I have enjoyed this season of White Lotus so much. It's what we've been talking about with guests on this show of shows that you put down your phone for. This is a show I will put my phone down for, which is a very hard thing to do these days, and I will just watch. And, Sunday night's episode, going to be an hour and a half. Here is my prediction, and this is literally me, just what I instinctually think, and I could be completely wrong, but I want to have this memorialized on this podcast. So this isn't really a spoiler because I don't know. I have no clue what the finale holds, but I do think Walton Goggins' character is going to be the one who passes away, the one who's killed. Now, I think there is something to be said. He just literally almost shot the man who he thinks killed his father, right? And that is also the owner of the White Lotus Hotel with him and his wife, Saritala. I cannot pronounce names anymore. Anyways, the woman, and there have been so many weird conspiracies out there saying that woman is actually a trans woman, and that is Walton Goggins' father. That is not the case because we have seen footage of her as a young woman performing in movies. They also have a family, a kid. So I do not think I just don't think that's going to be the thing. But I do think Walton Goggins' character, something is going to happen because if I threaten the owner of that hotel and my girlfriend, who's played by Amy Lee Wood, is that right? She's fantastic. She's still back at the hotel. I think Rick comes back to the hotel, Walton Goggins. I think there is something where they send Gay Talk, the security guard, to, I don't know, to rough Rick up. And we know Gay Talk has a problem with violence already. I think there's going to be some accidental shooting. And I think Walton Goggins' character is going to be the one that passes away because he's the one that's been talking about running from pain and that you can't run from pain. And he seems like by the end of last week's episode, achieved some sort of enlightenment in facing the person that he thought killed his father. Now, I think that dude was Rick's father. I think you're going to find out that dude is Rick's father and that his mom potentially lied to him. Who knows if that's the case? But I think Rick is going to be the one to pass away. It's probably just going to be some random extra that we saw one time in the series. You never know, but I like that there's a mystery. I like that we don't know. And I've heard so many theories and they've all been so well thought out. And I just feel like, man, there's 3 seasons of White Lotus so far, and this is the season by far that it has almost felt like a game of Clue, even though there is so much going on in this TV show that has nothing to do with the actual death. Right? There is, talk about class warfare, enlightenment, pain, family. There are so many elements and I don't know. So it's not about the death, but this is an exciting backdrop to theorize and speculate. And especially because we specialize and theorize so much on these reality TV shows. I mean, we will fucking break down a timeline of Craig and Paige until our flipping ears turn red and snot comes out of our nose. I mean, we will lose our minds with Craig and Paige, but I like when it's something like actual worthwhile, when it's like a White Lotus type show where you're like, there's real thought that goes into this. With Paige and Craig, I mean, listen, as we've gone along, at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, dude, they did not belong together. And also, can we stop? Should we kind of set some sort of, I talked about term limits for housewives the other day. Can we set term limits for clapping back at exes? At a certain point, I'm going to be tired of hearing about Craig and Paige. And obviously, if you watch Summer House, there are so many clues dropped that Paige is not into Craig. And in fact, Andy Cohen on Watch What Happens Live the other night, he was talking to, I think, Carl and Madison. And even Andy was like, don't you think at this point, like, does Carl watch Summer House? Doesn't he see what's happening? And I know that when we're in love or what we think of as love, we are blinded by things. And I think Craig, even in Southern Charm, said, I think I was just kind of fantasizing about my future with Paige instead of actually kind of listening and looking because we make excuses for these people that we supposedly love because we want everything to be hunky dory, as Kathy Hilton would say. And obviously, dude, I'm like, from the jump this season on Summer House, you're like, oh, Paige is like over Craig. And it's in this weird space where Paige, like, have you ever been in that relationship, you guys, where you've kind of had that feeling months and months prior to the actual breakup where you're like, this isn't working. And then you spend those next couple of months just looking at nitpicking at every fucking thing. Like, oh, Craig just writes with his right hand. He's right-handed. Yeah, but still, I like people that write with their left hands. Like anything that Craig does is going to annoy Paige at this point. Like it's all, you can even tell when Craig says, let's go back to the city so we can play with our daughter, who's Paige's new cat. And you can tell that even annoyed Paige. Like she didn't say it, but you knew the thought going through her head was like, that's my fucking cat, Craig. It's my fucking tabby cat. How dare you? So I just think it's like Craig's in this position where it's already done. It's already over. And it took her months to be able to find the words and potentially the courage to actually go through with it. Craig obviously now is dating that Buffett girl, which somebody says she's related to Jimmy Buffett, the old parrot head. Rest in peace. So my God, Craig winding up with the lineage of Jimmy Buffett. Margaritaville? Are you kidding me? Good on you, Craig. We'll see how long that lasts. But yeah, let's dive into this. If you like this show, consider giving it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all the things. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on TikTok. Follow me until the ends of the earth. I am shouting myself out just like my life coach and therapist says I should. So I shall. Okay, so over on Southern Charm, bop-a-doo, bop-a-dee-ee. This is part 2 of the reunion. Where we left off on part 1 is, remember, Venita was going into the details about the relationship with JT, and JT was like, come on, I tried to reach you. I called you multiple times. And Venita's like, you want to bet? I'm going to get my phone. And they're like, yeah, grab it. So Venita like hightails it for the backstage area and comes out with the phone. And Andy's like, I think it's about to get a whole lot worse. Also, didn't everybody think this was another missed opportunity of this second part of the reunion for Andy to literally grill JT and say, why did you quit the show and what made you decide to come back? Like really grill him. And sometimes I'm like, we're all here. Grill them. Grill them. They are getting paid. They are legitimately collecting money. And I mean, I don't know if it needs to be a tiered system. Like if you're willing to tell 75% of the truth, we'll give you this much money. If you're willing to tell us 100% of the truth, you get the grand prize, a full paycheck from NBC Universal. So Venita has her phone and she's like reading direct messages. Because remember, JT hit her with that thing of like, you hurt my feelings and you ghosted me when all of this shit was going down. And so Venita is saying like, okay, you said to me before I got up and walked away, you were like, you ghosted me and my feelings were hurt. That's what you said to me. And JT was like, yeah, I did say that. And then Venita's like, October 29th, quote, it will be super helpful for us to both link up in person. Just see how you're doing after yesterday. And Lev is like, so this is after the trailer dropped, the trailer for Southern Charm. I mean, he's like, yeah, the day after. And JT's like, okay, because we're seeing each other now. We're dating. We're hanging out every day, like you said. And I'm reaching out to you to be caring to you. Venita says, I said, I think I'm just going to take some time to be by myself. And we don't talk because I took time. And JT's like, and I called you multiple times. And Venita's like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. And Venita's like, that weekend. And JT's like, that weekend, there was still no response. I'm in the dark, Venita, every day. And we were hanging out. And I'm reaching out trying to make sure you're okay. And he's like, what did he say over the weekend? Venita says, he said, just wanted to let you know my mind was on yours. My mind was on yours. I could say it a normal way like I'm thinking about you, but I want to sound a little poetic, a little Matthew McConaughey. My mind was on yours. Venita says she was at her best friend's wedding, so she didn't have her phone. Venita says, and you said, got it, I'll let you be. And Venita's like, yeah, I got it. I'll let you be. That's it. You gave me a week of I don't care. You ghosted me. And he's like, and then how soon after that when you said, and Venita just gets angry. She's like, 1:30 the next fucking day. You post that girl on your goddamn Instagram. And we see a photo of JT and I believe his current girlfriend that is like, oh my God, that looks like their boyfriend and girlfriend and kind of acknowledging that this is his girlfriend. So after a week, just a week of being supposedly ghosted by Venita, this guy was like, time to get a new one. I need love. I need love. And even Austin's like, zoiks. Lev is like, why did you do that, JT? And JT's like, hold on, real quick, look, hold on. And Venita's like, you didn't think that was going to hurt me? He's like, real quick, wait. Did those text messages like, that's showing me showing care for you? And he's like, I know it totally is. I'm just wondering what compelled you to post that then. And Molly's like, were you doing damage control? He's like, no. Lev is like, did Venita hurt your feelings and you tried to hurt her feelings back? He's like, no. After a week of trying for somebody I cared about, I said, you know what? I got to move on because I can't keep sitting here in limbo. JT can't wait 7 days. Even the Lord on the 7th day, he rested. So JT, he rested and I had to have a new plan of action. Sally's like, after a week, it's 7 days. Rodrigo laughs. Venita's like, you just verbatim been like, hey, listen, like, I know you're taking time for yourself, but I have to be very honest. You know, I don't know where we stand right now and it's hurting my heart. And JT's like, yeah, I guess. I hear you. I don't care about any of that. I'm caring like, how do you then start that quickly into a new relationship if you weren't already in that relationship? But JT's like, that's fair. I can see you getting mad about that. Yeah. Look, it was a big miscommunication. Let's just say our wires were crossed. Hey, my bad on this one. I'm going to take the heat on this one. And he's like, sounds like you still have a lot of love and chemistry for each other, JT. And Lev is like, I think they just miscommunicated and both sides are super hurt. I feel like I'm in the fucking Twilight Zone. Like, I think he was dating somebody the whole time. This seems so bizarre. And I mean, I will tell you, we're going to see Venita's reaction here about a couple things in a second. And I think that's even bizarre. The whole relationship is bizarre. And we will see this obviously played out on season 11 of Southern Charm. So JT, and also Leva, let JT like hang himself. You do not need to help him because Leva's trying to be like the reliable narrator and help him through things. And it's just not working. And he's like, well, I guess the question is, where do you go from here so we can get back to talking about Craig? And JT's like, I'd like to repair it and get the friendship back. I'd like that. And he's like, Venita, do you want to be friends with him? And there's a pause. And she goes, sighs, and she goes, yeah. Oh, Venita. We can't help you help yourself. Austin's like, wow. Like this is one of the first times I've agreed with Austin. He's like, wow. And then Andy pushes further. Do you want to date him? Pause. And she goes, yeah. And there's a shot of JT like, yeah, damn right she does. JT, you have a girlfriend. Yeah, like legitimately. If that I was that girl, I wouldn't let you hang out with Venita. Madison just goes, that's very honest. Yes, Venita, it's too honest, Venita. It's too honest. Craig has a face like, oh, yikes, for Craig to be like, how are we not picking up the signals here? Venita says, but I'm not going to allow myself to work on our friendship with her in the picture because I know she does not like me. Yeah, and also that's not called a friendship. That's called a friendship where in the back of your head, you want to date him. So yeah, like Venita, it's just a no-go. But it is a full go because we're shooting a show. And he says, JT, how do you respond to that? He's like, I am a PIMP, Andy. Damn. No, he says, I think step one is just being here today, Andy. And like seeing you in person, Venita. And I think we just take it one day at a time. Yeah. So Andy's like, okay, let's get to the bottom of some conspiracies. And we see a clip package about like everything that's happened during this season. Which I'm just like, I'm still not clear on the Venita JT stuff. So then we quickly clear up the Leva rumor from the beginning of the season that Austin was maybe hanging out or hooking up with girls when he was with his girlfriend, and that's cleared up. Austin saying, no, that was 6 months before I was official with my girlfriend. Then we move on to the comment that JT called Miss Patricia a biatch, a bitch, at the beginning of the season because Craig heard that from JT, even though no audio was ever found, even though they were filming that day. Andy says Miss Patricia came out on Instagram and said, when this was filmed, I still believe JT called me a B word, but now I don't think he did. I don't think he did. And Andy's like, who here thinks JT called her a bitch? And Craig raises his hand. Madison raises her hand. Nobody else is raising their hand at first. And then Sally raises her hand. And then Austin reluctantly raises his hand. And then JT hits Craig. He goes, hey, Craig, you really hurt my feelings, bro. No audio found. You look like the handsome boy who cried wolf. And Craig's like, I don't care. I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm telling you exactly what fucking happened. You know? Here's a good point, though, JT. Take the bitch thing out of it. The stuff that you said outside of the bitch things was way worse. And JT's like, there's nothing to take out because I didn't say it, so stop saying it. Craig's like, I'm saying take that out of it. You know, and Andy's trying to help Craig. Oh, you mean like the stuff about Madison, the stuff about Austin. And we flash back to scenes that we saw, but like audio that we didn't hear this season, where Austin's telling Craig about Austin. You don't hold him accountable, Craig. We got to get this guy in order. You're keeping Austin in your life who's pulling this shit. And Shep going, it's none of my business, JT. Andy says, did Craig misrepresent what was said at your golf outing? Shep's like, I'd say 90% of it was spot on. That's a passing grade, folks. That's an A. And Craig's like, yeah, 90% was spot on. And Shep's like, you embellish, Craig. And Craig's like, I'm saying that's a good thing, Shep. And he like, Craig's activated and like kind of pointing with his whole hand. Craig's like, 90% is pretty damn fucking good. And Shep's like, oh my God, Craig's coming at me. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And JT's like, Shep, are you serious? You're serious right now? You saying that I called her a bitch? And Shep's like, no, I'm not saying that. That's the 10%. And JT's like, well, that's what the 90%, then what's the 90% I did say? And Shep's like, you tried to play moral police with us. Do not try to play moral police with these men of Charleston. Bad boys. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when the moral police come for you? Shep's like, you went on a rant, JT, how we can't stand for this sort of behavior from our friends. You exactly said that. I love that that's Shep's breaking point. You went on a rant saying that we have to fucking not lie to people and shit, and I'm not down for that. Craig's like, you said we're enabling Austin to continue to cheat on his girlfriend. And Austin's like, yeah, you came up with nonsense. And JT's like, you're going to let him just roll you like that, Shep? And then Andy's like, okay, let's talk about your relationship with the truth, Craig. Because you said on Watch What Happens Live that you never lied on camera. And Craig's like, I stand by that. And Andy's like, and I said, well, in the episode that we were coming on after, they had showed a montage of you lying. And Craig's like, yeah, and I'll walk you through it. And we see this montage of Craig through the years lying about being a lawyer and not having received his diploma, even though he did graduate. So Craig is like, okay, so I did mail in my bar application. It was rejected because I hadn't finished the final paper. Why would you mail in something if you knew you hadn't finished? Sorry. Listen, I'm not a big man of studies myself, but like, Craig was like, I had the incorrect postage on it, obviously. Craig goes, the graduating thing, I did walk and I was missing one credit. So, and he's like, you lied about graduating. And Craig pauses. He goes, well, I mean, define graduating. Define graduating! You fucking idiot! Define graduating. Austin like rolls his eyes. Everybody at home had to. This guy, and by the way, you know what? Can we also say, I want the best for Craig? I mean, come on, man. This guy has it all. And it's just the fucking stubbornness. It is the stubbornness. Can you imagine a man holding this tightly onto something that is basically, I mean, we don't even have to call it a lie. Let's just call it like he didn't have his facts straight and he is wrong. Like, where does this passion to hold on to something that isn't true come from? Shep's like, hey, Craig, I mean, this is okay, though. That was the point back then. You were like on Adderall. I mean, you were not the same person you are today. You didn't even know to sew back then. And Shep's like, I was fallible like a mofo back then. I mean, like I was bad too. And Craig's like, I get that. But what I'm saying is when we were filming, I would never say something that can impeach me at the end of the day. Impeach you? This isn't the fucking presidency. And by the way Craig is going, he could and will be president of the United States one day. I would not let oh my God, that's what's happening, you guys. That is what's happening. We are literally going to have a stream of reality show presidents from here on out. Kim Kardashian, Craig Conover. I mean, like, I will not let my time on Southern Charm impeach me. Andy goes, Austin, what do you think about Craig's relationship to the truth? And Austin's like, I mean, I'm not going to flat out call Craig just like a liar, but you are an embellisher. In Craig's head, he's like, that's over. I will buy you out of pillows and beers. Austin goes, Craig and I have shit that we're going to talk about here soon, and we'll get to that. I'm like, no, you will get to it now. Come on. You will get to this shit now. Okay, so we have a break, and Miss Patricia has landed. She's getting all glammed, and Miss Patricia says, they don't know that I know all of their secrets. Yeah, I want to see a full hour of you knowing all of their secrets, Miss Patricia. That lady is a legend. I'm talking stories about Southern Charm, but I'm talking about stories in her life. If Peacock doesn't ever do like a 4-episode docuseries on the life of Miss Patricia, what are we even doing here? Now, to make matters worse, Venita, walking around with 2 beverages, all of a sudden knocks on the door. I'm like, who is she going into Leva's room? No, she's going into JT's room to pass him and OJ. And JT's like, I can't have the sugar. And Venita's like, no, this is just as a truce, just a little bit. And JT's like, okay, yeah, I'll down it then. A truce? I'll risk my life. Yeah. Venita, why are you giving your power away like this? Why are you giving your power away? This is not good. You're too nice. Oh my God. And then the producer's like, oh, here you guys are flirting again. And JT's like, no, we're not flirting. Don't tell my girlfriend, please. No. But Venita's like smiling at him and they're just like staring at each other. And it gives me like weird chills and feelings in my nether regions in a bad way. I don't like it. I just don't like any of it, you guys. Okay, so we're coming back from break. 4, 3, 2, action. Hey everybody, I'm Andy Cohen. Welcome to the gang of Southern Charm and Miss Patricia. Hey, Miss Patricia. All right, is this your first reunion? And Miss Patricia's like, first and last. I can't believe this is her first reunion. Andy goes, well, does this set look familiar to you? And it's like kind of like it's modeled after her house and different Southern Charm locations. But Miss Patricia goes, well, it's my house, but now it's Whitney's home. Remember, she signed over the ownership to Whitney. Oh my, I love my mom with everything I hold dear, but now that she's gone, I don't know if is that legal for an older man to be adopted by Miss Patricia? And I think my mom would totally be cool with it, Like I told her about Miss Patricia before she passed, and I think I need Miss Patricia in my life. So Miss Patricia, if you're listening, please consider adopting me. Anyways, Andy is letting us know that this show has been on for 10 seasons. It's such a transformation for this group of charmers, some of whom were baby-faced, naive, and even law students. Kind of. Not. Who knows if Craig actually even ever was a law student? Now we do like a flashback of like all of them 10 seasons ago where they're all baby-faced. I mean, Craig looks like he was a good-looking little dude back then, but now he's grown into like a man, It's just funny looking at these guys. Whitney back then looked like he was in his late 40s. I'm just joking. We have a young Shep. And we have Whitney talking about the show. He's like, my group of friends in Charleston, they're fun. They're always pretty fairly drunk. Shep is fucking brilliant, Whitney says. And Shep's going, I do commercial real estate, but I don't really do shit. So he's held true to that for 10 seasons, right? Whitney's like, Craig's funny. He's probably one of the younger of the crew. He's a law student. Then we have Craig going, I love the law, but I want to be an attorney to be wealthy, obviously. This is before the pillow kingdom, right? But he lets us know he loves money. And we see a younger Miss Patricia talking about the men that she has enjoyed in her life. And then Craig in a flashback says, I always say my wife's not even born yet. But as a joke, I say that. And then Shep saying, I do want to have, a family, I think, one day. But there's a window, right? And it's probably just is starting to open. And it'll probably close in 15 years or 10 years or 12 years. And by the way, they put up a shot that says, it's been 12 years. Oh. Andy says, okay, Craig, you said your wife hasn't been born yet. And Craig's like, I don't even know that guy back then. And Shep's like, I love that guy. Yeah. Everybody's like, yeah, your wife's in middle school right now, which sadly, there probably is some truth to that. Andy says, Miss Matt, you look exactly the same as you always did. What's your secret? And Miss Patricia's like, Botox everywhere, Andrew. Andy Cohen, by the way, did an article this week where he said he just started getting Botox for the first time. Andy points out that Whitney is one of the show's producers and her son. How did he convince you to be a part of it? And Miss Patricia's like, I didn't want to do it. I came to Charleston to retire and, read and eat bonbons on my Chase lounge. He just said, do it for 5 minutes. And then they called me and said, hey, will you do it for the next episode? And then so on and so forth. And Andy says everybody at Bravo wanted to just see more of you. And I think that was, it's sweet. But this is what I'm saying. Like, she's on it for such a brief amount of time right now. And we could have just peppered her with questions. Like, I wanted to know specifics of like, what did you think of Taylor on the couch for Shep? What did you think of this girl for Whitney? I wanted to hear all of the dirt. So then we have Craig saying that he thought that the whole show initially was a prank that they were playing on him. And I thought that Valley spot I did with Jax this week was a prank as well. And he said he was hoping that the show would go only like 3 seasons at least. Miss Pat says her and Madison had been friends for 17 years, like in all. And she would invite her to all the parties. And 2 of the guys even tried to hook up with her. And Craig was like, I think she's talking about me and Shep. Then Andy asks Miss Patricia about Paige being mean to Craig because she said that on Watch What Happens Live. And Miss Patricia says, I took a lot of criticism for that, and people saying I'm not an independent woman. And she's like, I've always worked. My point is with Paige was that she was dismissive and it bordered on being rude. That's one thing you do not do to Miss Patricia. It is always interesting to see other people's friends, how they respond to your partner. And I do, even though listen, as I grow older, the Team Paige, Team Craig thing, it's all like, it's a little silly, but I am, I guess, leaning more towards I understand where Paige's head is at. But I do appreciate that Craig has a core group of friends that seem to have his back, even though he is a consistent liar. But Andy's like, do you have any advice for the men of Southern Charm? And she's like, I'm done. I've tried to give them advice so many times. They don't listen to it, so I'm done. And nobody pays attention. And then we move on, and Andy's like, this season, Molly said that Charleston was full of garbage men Peter Pans who suck at life, which, by the way, is a great working title for another Southern Charm spinoff. Garbage men Peter Pans. Are you kidding me? But Molly says, I'm from Charleston, so I can say that, and dating sucks, which, by the way, she's literally sitting right next to Shep, who was pretty, by the way, this show might be a prank just to get people to sleep with Shep, Andy says, Molly, there were a lot of viewers that related to your personal struggle that you had with body image, and we flash back to that scene where Whitney was making fun of her eating a sandwich cupcake. And she just says, yeah, it's really hard for you to get older and for your body to change. I mean, listen, this is on its face. You're like, yeah, of course. But this is something I think everybody deals with this. I deal with this even, you know, and she says it helps me feel less alone that other people, feel this way as well. Andy drops our buddy Brian Moylan, who wrote in Vulture, I love this weird ass geeky girl with all of my heart. Of all the reality shows I've consumed, never have I once seen that that hinged on a tuba solo. Feed us, oh great tuba goddess. Brian Moylan always having a way with words. I love it. And she loved hearing that. And Molly just says music is beautiful and it changes you. It's powerful. Andy says, Sally, we got a lot of comments on your job. And remember, Sally is a spine surgeon and she works with like high tech robots. She has a real job. So when she's messing around with these goofy guys or that Tarzan dude or even like, I mean, it's just, it boggle. It's like the Venita with JT thing. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're a fucking surgeon. Andy says, by the way, you and Taylor seem to have some overlap when it comes to men. Remember Gaston, Andrew, Shep, they have both kind of been with. And Andy says, how did you and Shep get together, Sally? And Sally's like, Shep slid into my DMs. Hey-oh, Charleston is a small world with an internet connection. And Andy goes, Shep, is Sally the only woman that ever kicked you out of bed? And Shep's like, yes. It was shocking, Shep says. I love that. I mean, that's where I wish they had GoPros or just hidden cameras like at Summer House, where it just filmed 24/7, 365 days a year. Because wouldn't you love to see a Shep of like, why can't I stay? I just want to make sweet love to you. Please. But Sally's like, yeah, I don't know. I was just kind of ashamed of myself and all that. And everybody's laughing. And she's like, no, I didn't mean it. Like, I'm just not somebody that does like a one night stand. Which all the men on that couch are so used to one night stand. What's wrong with a one night stand? Andy says, Taylor, we got a lot of comments about you being bothered by the fact that Sally hooked up with Shep. And Taylor's like, definitely not bothered by them. She can do whatever she wants. Taylor is so soft-spoken. I do wonder what Taylor's future on this show is, right? Will she go the way of Olivia last season? How will they continue to work her in, right? But she's just saying like, no, didn't really have a problem with that. But it seems like she has a problem with Sally. Because she was like saying, oh, he wouldn't leave me alone. And Sally's like, yeah, he was blowing up my phone. I never said he was obsessed with me. And Shep's like shaking his head like, no, I did not do any of that. I never gave her a megalodon tooth necklace. That's when you know it's serious and I'm obsessed. But Sally and Taylor, there is no love lost between them. Andy said, Sally, how is your dating life? Are you still with Andrew? And she is not with Tarzan guy anymore. And she's like, the only thing I will have Taylor's back on is that guy is weird. She said he was weird. And we flash back to Taylor saying that he is fucking weird. So she is done with that dude. And then they talked about Gaston and her relationship. And remember, Sally gave Gaston a little bit of a blowjob. Remember that speech when she's like, we were in a parking garage and I gave him a little bit of a blowjob. I think the wording was, Shakespeare would never be more proud. But Andy's like, I would love to give you the floor, Taylor, to clear anything up about Gaston, your boyfriend, right? And Andy's like, Shep, you called Gaston mid. You called him not attractive. And we flash back to that scene where Shep was like, that dude's not good looking. He's mid. And everybody in the room's like, Shep, shut up. Venita's like, are you out of your mind? This is the kind of confidence I want. Like, Shep's an attractive dude, but he's not like, I would say Gaston is better looking, if not a little. I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Shep's very interesting and, But Taylor says, I think talking about somebody's looks is very middle school mean girl, And Shep's like, I agree. And he's like, Shep, you said her family wanted her to be with you. And Shep's like, that wasn't fair to say. And Andy's like, why'd you say it? He's like, well, I hope this isn't at her brother's funeral. Her sweet, sweet granddad was like, are you and Taylor going to get back together? And I was just like, oh my gosh. And Taylor's whispering to Rodrigo, I don't think he would ever say that, my grandpa. Shep's like, I just care about her and I will never stop. You cannot get me to stop caring about that girl. Taylor's like, well, what's frustrating is hearing you say you care a whole hell of a lot, but why didn't you care when you had your tongue down some other girl's throat? Andy makes a face like, make me a bird so I can fly far, far away. But she just says, you cared a little too late, right? And Shep's like, I agree. I'm going to ask for that Megalodon tooth back. And he says, all right, we're going to leave it there. So one person who has a lot to say about Gaston is Sally. Why keep talking about him? And Sally goes, no, I stopped completely. She's the one that continued to go around town. And Taylor's like, yeah, when you're going around town and coming into a new friend group. And Sally's like, when I'm going around town talking about you is crazy. You went around trashing my boyfriend, Taylor says. Sally's like, you're still running your mouth about me today. So they're fighting. I don't know. I can't. I don't know. I can't. I don't care about this storyline. But it seems like they're passionate about disliking each other. Andy goes, Sally, do you want to have a friendship with Taylor Ann? Is it Taylor or Taylor Ann? I know Taylor Ann's her name, but I thought we just called her Taylor. Sally's pausing and goes, well, no, not while she's dating Gaston, no. And then Taylor goes, oh, I guess we won't ever be friends then. And she says she does think she will get married to Gaston. And Shep does a big eye face, like, whoa, wow, whoa, whoa. And Andy's like, well, we wish you the best. I like Andy's like, well, we wish you the best. We will not see you again on Southern Charm. And he's like, this season, Charleston's resident Martha Stewart, a.k.a. Craig, attempted to live out his suburban dreams with a brand new pool and a side hustle as a beekeeper. Watch. No, but at the end of the season, Craig was stung when his queen abruptly left the hive. And we see the clip package of Paige and Craig, and then the breakup scene when they pick back up cameras and the ring. And Andy goes, Craig, I know we have a lot to discuss about the breakup. First off, I want to know, how's the sewing business going? And Craig's like, business is good, Andy. I'm very fortunate that things outside of the breakup are something to be appreciative for. This is like when Craig is at his best, when he's talking about his business, and he's such a pretty package, pretty privilege, as Jeff Lewis would say. And, when he's talking like this, you're like, you would believe anything this man says, and I will say, I watch the videos of sewing down south and all that, and it always looks like there's a line. He always looks like he's there hugging people. This dude has got a huge fan base. The people that do podcasts and listen to podcasts, they seem like they're they don't really love Craig, but he has got a huge fan base. That's why you can never I don't know. It's kind of interesting how the universe evens things out, is that you're never going to be universally loved unless you're the guys from Watch What Crappens, or Danny Pellegrino. But other than that, you are going to have a fair amount of detractors and also a fair amount of people that love you, right? And he says, you got some flack this season being more concerned with promoting your businesses on Instagram than spending time with friends. Shep, you were after him to get serious about his life for so long. And Shep's like, look, there's a balance, right? And if Craig had just really been more communicative, looking back, I mean, when you had your talk with Austin on the beach, and we flash back to that when they were bonding on the beach, when they were both drunk, telling each other they loved each other, and talking about Craig's alcohol problem while he was drinking champagne. And Austin says, or Craig says, communication is everything, And Andy says, Austin, did his relationship with Paige cause him to pull back from his friendship with you? And Austin says, you get into a relationship like Craig was in, and there's no shame or anything to make that person your number one priority. But when did things begin to go wrong? I can't even tell you. So that just shows he didn't lean on any of his friends. And Shep throws in, he goes, and third-party friendships are really important as well. And I think his anchor was dug in so deep with her that maybe that wasn't a healthy thing at the end for them. Yeah, I mean, if a relationship goes south, then it sucks. But if a relationship is beautiful or shades of beautiful, then you do want to harvest and invest. You do want to plant seeds and do all that shit and make that person the person that you primarily spend time with in a lot of ways. You should always have friends, right? But there is something to be said for relationships where you do want to be around each other. Craig says, my only way to get to where I wanted to get on my journey was to really isolate myself. And I really liked having someone home to go, I don't know, I don't know. And he goes, looking at it from the outside, it seemed like you were setting up a life for the two of you that only one of you was interested in. Oh, burn, burn. Craig's like, the funny thing is, I was working on myself to not react to signs. So, like, she stopped visiting me in Charleston, but it was because she was, like, too busy. She never came to the Nashville store. She was too busy. So it was a confusing relationship to be in sometimes. And he's like, talk to me about the ring. And Craig's like, she said, I would like you to get me a ring. Like, I think it's time. So I had it made here, and it's like a 4-carat elongated cushion cut with a 1/2 carat of diamonds around the bend. So this is what I wanted. We got some information about the ring. Would I like a picture? Of course I would. But we got that. I mean, this sounds like he did potentially get the ring, right? This is very detailed. Did he have this many details when he lied about the bar exam? I don't think so. So Craig's like, then by the time I got the ring, she said, I'd rather you wait until after I announced the business. But looking back, like, it didn't feel totally right. Like, I was nervous, but not the good type of nervous. So that's interesting. So Craig says, I was nervous, but not the good type of nervous. So that's a sign right there. And maybe Craig pushed that off as like, oh, I've just, got an upset tummy and maybe it's just food I ate. But it was actually him picking up on signs that she was not wanting it, that she was not excited about it. And he says, what will you do with it? And he's like, I'll bring it back to the jeweler. I don't re-gift jewelry like my friend over there. And that's a joke about Shep giving Megalodon teeth to anybody that he sleeps with. Sorry, Molly, if you haven't gotten one. But yeah, like, also, I don't know enough about jewelers. Do they take jewelry back? Like, if you, like, do they, like, okay, bud, like, there's a, like, all sales are not final with jewelry? Anyways, Andy keeps going. Austin, you alluded that Paige having moved on with another guy was substantiated. And we flash back to January 30th on Watch What Happens Live, where he says, I don't think those are rumors. I think that's actually reality with Paige. And he's like, you said that with pretty good certainty. And Austin's like, I shouldn't have, because I don't know the girl, day-to-day life, but it looks like repetitive dates she was going on. So that's why I thought this doesn't seem like it's a rumor. And Shep's like, at what point does it seem like, people are like corroborating stories. Like if it like walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And he says, Paige responded to that accusation. She said, the narrative took a turn recently that I had cheated. Let me say this here and now. I didn't cheat on my ex-boyfriend. It was a full month that we were broken up and I didn't say anything. And he asked me not to say anything. Craig says, that's not true. And he says, do you think she cheated on you, Craig? And Craig's like, I'm not going to even touch anything with that because the gigglers would destroy you. Craig goes, I didn't start those rumors. And Shep goes, well, what do you think, Andy? I mean, you saw the little reports. And he's like, that's an HR issue. No, Andy, you take a stand now. Andy says, Kyle and Amanda from Summer House recently defended Paige. You unfollowed Kyle and Amanda, Craig. And Craig's like, yeah, they said there was something wrong with how I've been handling being broken up with. And we flash back to Watch What Happens Live of Craig saying her cast commenting on how I'm grieving and that I'm sorry that I'm not reading Reddit every day and getting on there and defending her. Like, I never said you cheated, so I am not a part of this. Craig at the reunion says, she broke up with me. I fucking protected her to the ends of the earth, but that ended the day that you cut me out of your life. And he's like, the two of you have not spoken since your breakup. And Craig's like, she won't answer, which is dark, man. So he's like calling, beep, boop, pop, beep, boop, boop, boop. Paige, it's me, Craig Rooney. Like, beep, boop, pop, beep, boop, boop, boop. Hey, it's me, Hannah. No, it's Craig, pick up. But he says, yeah, she completely cut me off. We'll see each other at BravoCon. And he says, Rose07 tweeted, women everywhere are going to be pursuing Craig so hard. After seeing what an amazing boyfriend he was to Paige, it won't be long before he is walking down the aisle, just saying. By the way, Craig is already with another girl. Yeah, this was never going to be the problem that people weren't going to like Craig after this. But Andy confirms, you haven't started dating yet, right? And Craig's like, no. And Madison's like, I send him DMs. I send him girls all the time. And he's like, this is fun. Craig says, I know it sounds silly to the boys sometimes, but I feel like I kind of want to be fully healed. I'm going to start a bar called Soft Bar. No, he wants to fully heal. And it only took him a couple months, guys. Andy says, you maybe seem a little bit relieved about not having to like cover for anything, anymore. And he says, I'm really sad, but there's a lightness to it. I did a lot of living by myself. In my head, I was like, one day we'll do this together. So I was in love with not reality. I was in love with the potential that I thought we could be. And I think, yes, I was blinded by wanting to make it work, I guess. Okay, so on its face, that makes sense. And I love that. I mark my words. Let's mark it right here, folks. Whoever does this, I always tell people to mark things. And I don't know if anybody does. So I just say this out into the air. And I know that nobody ever does. But mark this right now. You will get a self-help book from Craig Conover in the next 2 years. Mark it down, folks. But everybody's like, pussy. We cut to break. We come back. Intense so far, folks. Are you with Craig right now? Or do you feel for Craig? Or are you like, fuck that guy? So we finally get to the meat of the show, 75% through this episode. And they talk about the core friendship between Craig, Austin, and Shep. They talk about the beginning of the season when they went to Shep's hunting cabin. And Austin talks about how Craig always has a hard line stance with friends of like, don't hang out with somebody if they make you feel bad. And Austin just can't do that. And they feel like Shep should be making more, or that Craig should be making more of an effort. And Craig says he found that incredibly insulting. Craig says, I just never would have imagined in my wildest dreams that my friends would take it personally that I was working on myself. Where I come from, if you stop drinking alcohol, it's because you have a problem with alcohol. To be fair, when we got to the Bahamas, I realized that Austin, it had never even crossed his mind. And that's my fault for, I guess, never sitting him down and talking to him about it. How did it not cross Austin's mind when it crossed all of our minds? Like, literally, I was like, from the beginning of the season, I was like, oh, yeah, he doesn't want to fucking drink and party. He's got like, he's a backyard Betty now. Like, he's backyard Craig. And that's fine, right? Austin goes, I could have seen some signs too with, your past, right? And, to maybe be like, oh, maybe he does have a problem with alcohol. But like when I came to your house, and by the way, let's also talk about problems with alcohol, because I think Craig, it probably was a problem with alcohol in addition to Adderall. Even with Jax talking about his cocaine use recently, it's never, it's always something and the alcohol, and because you notice Craig still drinks, but it'll be like, oh, I'll have a beer or I'll have champagne or something. And I think when you're on drugs, you are like pounding vodka and shit like that, or at least these guys seem to be. Austin says, when I came to your house, it was purely out of, I know that you've been busy, Craig. And I was hoping that you would be like, look, maybe I have lost touch of my personal relationships. And instead you took it like I was just, I don't even really know how you took it. And all of a sudden, Craig's like, I felt blindsided. It's like, we didn't talk for like a week or something after that. And I was like, man, And Shep even said to me, and he was like watching the scene, he was like, I could just tell that you were nervous as shit. And you were like, oh God, if I say something wrong, then Craig's going to bite my head off. That's wild, right? And that's interesting of like, imagine that. We watched the Southern Charm scenes, right? And he's talking about earlier in the season when Austin visited him in his backyard and Craig had like a hardline stance with him. And then imagine not talking to Craig for a week after that. And we're like, oh, they're all buddies from the show. Like Austin was sitting there sweating bullets for a week. And he's like, can I ask you a question? I don't want to say scared of him. And Austin's like, I am terrified of Craig sometimes. Yes. And Andy's like, is it his temper? And Austin's like, it is most certainly his temper. Woo! Craig is an angry, incredible Hulk. The incredible Craig. Craig smash! Andy's like, you think you have a bad temper? And Craig's like, go fuck yourself, Andy. No, Craig goes, yeah, I'm working on it. It's why I don't fucking drink anymore. And then Andy's like, is anybody else scared of him? And Leva's like, yeah. Everybody raises their hand pretty much. Shep's like, sometimes. Rodrigo's like, I guess. Venita, like, Taylor doesn't raise her hand. And Craig's like, I had no idea that's how you felt, Austin. And he's like, there was a big reaction online to Paige making fun of Austin because there was scenes. And they were like, they told Paige to do better, mean girl. And Austin was like, well, I thought she would be like, I love this when we made up and, you need to hug it out with him. Like, I thought that would be the demeanor with Paige that she had. And Craig's like, she's not a mean girl. She was just sticking up for me. And then Andy's like, Craig, you Austin, you felt that Craig used the Pillows and Beers podcast as a weapon. What was up with you offering him 50 grand initially and then lowballing him? Because that was the thing, remember, is that they were talking about getting rid of it, and his partner was like, yeah, offer him up to 50, and he's like, I'll offer him 30. Craig's like, we're so bad at communicating with each other, which is wild for a podcast, right? He's like, I didn't know what to do anymore. We didn't know. Like, I was so frustrated at Austin because in my mind, I knew his goals. And in my mind, he wasn't doing the stuff that he needed to do to get there. It is so weird. Craig treats Austin like a little brother, and Austin is actually older than Craig. That always blows my mind. But Craig's like, just how I changed my relationship with alcohol, I can see it happening for him. And Andy's like, do you think his drinking is holding him back? And Craig's like, he doesn't have a drinking problem. And Andy's like, but you also said, Craig, he showed up hungover for the Pillows and Beer podcast, and you said he was Xannied out. We're talking about Xanax. That was the part I couldn't believe they left in. And Andy's like, Xannied out. They were Xannied out. And Austin's like, wait, let me make it clear. I do not have a Xanax problem. Okay? Craig will say these things to make it look like I'm the problem. And it's not the truth at all. JT's smugly smiling like, you do have a Xanax problem. Austin's like, I posted something online about getting mimosas with Audrey on a Sunday. And Craig, he thinks someone's in their party era. And you say, I don't want to go out anymore. I don't even think that I go out anymore. I go, get margs with Rodrigo, and we're home by 8:00. Madison said it to me the other day, Austin says, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. She was like, the bottom line is that Craig does not, respect you. And I was like, damn. And Madison goes, I did say that. I did. And Andy's like, do you not respect him? There's a long pause that I don't know if the editors just put in a pause. And Craig goes, yeah, but it's just, for some reason, seeing Austin drinks makes me mad. I'm so angry. And Austin's like, I know it does. I know. Oh, man, maybe it is good they take some time apart. Craig's like, I think it's weird. Andy's like, Rodrigo, when you hang out with Austin, does he complain about getting judged by Craig? And Rodrigo's like, yeah, all the time. You're just feeling like it's weird for him to be so judgmental. I'm not hurting anybody. Anybody here would go and have a drink. Lev is like, he feels like you think that you're better than him. And you treat him like you're better than him and like you're more successful than him. And Austin's like, yeah, it feels like you're on an ivory tower, man, sometimes of superiority. Craig's like, well, see, this stuff makes me not want to hang out with him. This is Craig's temper and his stubbornness. See, when you guys are talking shit like this, you just ruined it for Austin. I'll never hang out with this boy again. And he's like, but he feels like you're looking at him from an ivory tower, Craig. And Craig's like, well, that's fucked up. And if he thinks that, then we don't need to hang anymore. Bro, you don't need to go this hard. There's a shot of Venita going, zoinks. And Craig's like, if you think that I look down on you, you know that's not my character. And Venita's like, Craig, he's trying to open up his heart to you. That is so rude. Craig's like, fuck you, Venita. He's like, no, it's how I feel. And Austin's like, okay. Craig's like, if you think, then you shouldn't even want to be friends with me, Austin. And Austin's like, Craig, I've been battling with it. It's what I'm trying to tell you. Why continue on if I'm just going to get backhanded for stepping out of line or something? It's a crazy concept that I don't have with anybody else here. And Shep's like, yeah. And there's reaction shots of the whole cast before we go to break. Zoinks, zoom in on JT, zoom in on Leva. So intense. It doesn't need to be this intense at all. Craig's like, I can't control the way that you perceive my actions. And then Shep's like, oh, that's gaslighting. Shep familiarizing himself with the term gaslighting. Craig's like, I know it's the wrong thing to say, but And Venita keeps going, he's trying to be open with you, Craig. And Craig's like, okay, guys, I'm hearing it, but you're not feeling it, Craig. However, I feel like the conversation at the end of this year is I finally understood Austin better on the beach, and you understood me better. And he's like, I want to talk about that. On the last night in the Bahamas, you admitted something really personal to Austin, that you have hemorrhoids. No, he says that you have a problem with alcohol. And you said you needed to stay on your couch to protect yourself. And Craig's like, it's weird to talk about, you know? And Molly's like, but it shouldn't be weird. And Lev is like, if you were to open up, the entire friend group would just like scoop you up and have your back. And by the way, they've done that with Paige. And Lev is like, I think you have a bit of an addictive personality where it's like all Paige or all this or all work. And I think the universe puts these two guys in your life, Shep and Austin, to like allow you to have a little bit more balance. Or the universe puts those two schmucks in your life just to fuck with you. We're having fun, folks. And he's like, your reaction to that conversation was what, Austin? What was that? What was that reaction? And Austin's like, yeah, I mean, for him to open up to me was fucking hot. You know, he said, which Leva, you can sit there and be like, you know, man, why don't you say this? It's harder for us for some reason, Austin says, to just be like completely open and vulnerable, which is so weird because Craig makes such a good habit of talking about his feelings from like kind of an ivory tower, if it were, of like, this is what I noticed I was doing. But he can't seem to do it in the situation with Austin. So Austin says, when Craig decided to open up to me, it's like it made me emotional, right? Because there is a genuine care and love for Craig. I fucking love you. Austin goes, I fucking love you, man. Fucking love you. And he goes, so now you have a different relationship with alcohol, yet he's still terrified of you. And Craig's like, right. And I'm saying like, it sucks that you guys think all that about me and I will work on it. I hear you. It's just unexpected. And he's like, well, so Austin, maybe you need to be more communicative with him, you know? And Austin's like, yeah, I mean, I feel like I try to keep peace sometimes to a fault, and then it ends up biting me in the ass. And then Andy's like, Madison, what's your take on this? And Madison's like, I just want to have them make up and get back together. They're sisters. Come on. And he's like, clearly they love each other and they're great together. You guys are super fun. You have a lot of affection for each other. You two are going to go to dinner tonight, Andy said, and you are not going to judge him when he orders a martini, and you're not going to judge him when me, Andy Cohen, makes a move on Austin. No, but Craig goes, maybe I'll have a celebratory beer with you. And Madison's like, no, we're drinking non-alc. We're doing soft bar. And they're all laughing. Andy says, Craig, anything you feel like we didn't address that you want to talk about? And Craig's like, I hope not. I feel like I've received a lot. And he goes, I'm excited that we all live in Charleston together. I'm excited to be spending more time in Charleston now. And Andy's like, you think next year this time you'll have a girlfriend? And Craig's like, I don't think you can plan that stuff unless you know any relatives of Jimmy Buffett. Woo! And he's like, Austin, anything more you want to say to Craig? And Austin's like, no. I hope that Craig is, received it and that we can just get back to our smiley fun times. And Craig in his head is like, you get back to smiley fun times. I'm a businessman. And he's like, JT, do you feel like you're going to be able to repair any of your friendships with this group today? And JT's like, I do. I think there's definitely a lot of people that I care about. One day at a time, Andy. Venita, where do you and JT go from here? And Venita's like, well, I mean, I can't do much. He's dating somebody. And Andy's like, do you feel cleaner with him at the end of the night than you did when you came in? And she says, I do. And JT makes the sign of the cross. And JT's like, yeah, it was a huge weight off my shoulders. And Andy's like, Shep, I feel like it's a tradition by now. I'd love to give you the floor for some final thoughts, sir. And Shep's like, I think it'd be remiss not to celebrate with all of you 10 seasons. I remember 5 of them. No, he goes, for Craig and I, we had no idea this was going to go this far. But to all of you, you were family to me. We only know things that a very small number of people know, whether it be feeling under the gun, dealing with online hatred, whatever it is, a very unique club of people that will be talked about on So Bad It's Good with Ryan Bailey that we are all in. And so I hope that you feel warmth towards anybody who's been through it for the rest of your life, because I know I will. And he's like, that's nice. All right. Well, thank you. I want to thank you for another great season. And that is the end of this reunion, folks. 2 parts. Thank God they didn't make it 3. Let's see what happens in the interim between seasons. And let's get on over to the Summer House, which, by the way, Bop-a-doo, Bop-a-dee-dee-dee. Remember when they used to have the Summer House theme song? My God, I love that theme song. And now the Summer House is San's theme song. No theme song.